In today's video, we're going to be finding out if ChatGPT 3.5 is capable of making React websites. And I did try to make this video before, but it kept trying to use React Router and it gave me a lot of errors because it used old versions of it. So we're not going to be doing that today. We're going to make a one-page website with a lot of different sections and it's going to look nice. But before we get started, make sure to like this video, subscribe, comment down below if you want to see more videos like this or if you have any video suggestions. But now, let's get started. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new React project in front of you so you can see that I haven't tweaked anything or done anything. So let's go ahead and write npx create React app at latest, and I'm going to call it AI website and press on enter. And now that it's done, I'm going to go ahead and cd to that project, and I'm going to open it with VS Code. So now there's our project. I'm going to open terminal and I'm going to run npm start to open this project so you can see that I haven't done anything to it, and there it is. Before I start writing prompts, I'm going to give myself some rules. I'm not going to be allowed to change anything in there, and what I am going to be allowed to do is I'm going to be creating different folders. So a components folder, which I'm going to make now, and also a pages folder, or let's actually do sections since we don't really have pages, so sections. And now let's go and start by creating our navbar. The way I'm going to try and make this website look nice is I'm not going to ask ChatGPT to give me a whole website with one prompt because it's not going to be good for sure. So I'm going to be doing this step by step, and I'm going to be giving it a good amount of details. So the first thing that we're going to create is going to be a navbar. So I'm going to write create a navbar for a modern website, and I'm going to actually add React in here for a modern React website because it's just going to give me plain HTML. And for the styles, what I'm going to say is and give it future like styling. So hopefully it's going to look something like the future. I'm not really sure what that's going to look like. And in here we have our navbar, and that's an interesting way to do this. So we have our CSS in our React, so I haven't seen that in a while. Let's go ahead and go to components, and I'm going to make a file called navbar.jsx, paste all of that in here, just like that. Now let's go to our app, or actually I can't really do anything. I'm going to ask it to add that. So I'm going to write add the navbar to the app.js file, and hopefully now it's going to add it there. So I'm going to copy this and paste it in here. Now we do have to change the location, so the path is going to be components and then navbar, and I didn't realize that it was using style component. So let's go back to VS Code, and I'm going to actually install it. So npm install style components, or for it to install, and hopefully now the error should go away. So there it is. And we can see that it doesn't even look that bad. So we have our logo here, and we do have some hover effects here, which aren't that bad. So if I press on anything here, we can see that it's not going to do much because we don't even have anything right now. So let's start with our first section, which is going to be the banner. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to make a section which is called banner.jsx, and I'm going to ask it for a prompt for that. Now down here, I'm going to write create a section for the banner.jsx file, and I'm also gonna write here that this whole website is going to be one page, just so that it knows, which hopefully won't give us any errors. So, and this website is going to be a one-page website with multiple sections. Now here we're gonna have our banner, so banner section. Now we're going to have our app in here. So we have the navbar and also the banner, and we are going to have to add some banner components, which is what ChatGPT is going to do. So in here, I'm going to paste all of this, but now let's copy the app.js code and paste it in here. And take a look at what our website looks like now. So we have some errors. That's because the paths here are wrong. So I'm going to write components navbar and then sections and then our banner, and so there's going to be our banner. Now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to just tell ChatGPT that all of our components, such as the navbar, the footer, and so on, are going to be in the folder called components, and then so on with the sections. So I'm going to write that. Now ChatGPT is going to know all of that, so there we go. And also I'm going to write that the folders are capitalized. Now I want the background to actually be a dark gradient, so let's go ahead and tell ChatGPT to make a gradient for the background color. So create a gradient for the background of the website. Now let's see what it's going to generate. And so in here what it's going to do is it's going to put all of our stuff in the container, so hopefully that will work. I'm going to go back in here and we need to add the styled import. And now we actually need to add the container. So container, and I'll put the navbar and the banner in there. And now hopefully we're gonna have our gradient. So there it is. And I'm gonna tell it to change the color to be darker. So I want the gradient to be dark. And all that I'm going to do now is copy the gradient, change this, and now when I go back, we can see that the gradient is going to be dark now. So I'm not going to lie, I did try to add an SVG to the background of the banner here, but it didn't work. So over here, React gave me some SVG and it just didn't work, so I'm not going to do that anymore. And since every time I give a new prompt, it's going to use the code from before with the background SVG, what I'm going to do is go back here and actually copy this so that it has a reference to the old code. And I'm going to write, this website is about you and your skills. So write some basic stuff about yourself in the banner. Here is the reference code. Now I'm going to paste it and press on save and submit. I'm going to paste this in here now. And there it is. So welcome to my portfolio. Hi, I'm your name. So we can see that it's still not understanding what I want. So I'm going to write banner. I'm going to press on enter. Let's see, it says welcome to Chat-GPT or whatever. So now I'm going to guess that it's going to be much nicer. I'm going to ask it to add some nice effects. So in here, I'm going to start by writing add some nice. And I want to see what it's going to do since I didn't give it too many details. Copy, paste it, and now we can see that when we hover, it's just going to get darker. I mean, that's not too bad, but I want to add the hover styles. Add the hover styles to the text and add some animation. So let's see what that's going to do. Let's copy this, paste it, and go back. So now we can see that ChatGPT is going to jump, which is actually kind of cool. So I'm going to keep that. I'm going to tell it to remove the hover animation to the banner image or the background. So this is probably going to be the last prompt for the banner. Copy and paste, and there it is. So now when we hover the banner, the text turns orange, and that's honestly going to be good enough for now. So I've tried to add something like a banner image, but it doesn't really work. So I tried doing this with an SVG, but it's just not working for some reason. So I'm going to try to do this again, but with more details. So I'm going to write create a background image for a banner about the future using an SVG and add it to the background of the banner. And I'm also going to give this banner right here, so I'm going to remove this AI banner, which is what I tried to add before. Now I'm going to give it this code so that it has a reference, because if I tell it to use the old banner code, it's not going to know which one to use. So I'm just going to say using this as a reference to where to add the image. Copy this. I'm going to go and paste it. And now when we go back here, nothing really changed. So I'm going to tell it to remove the SVG. I'm going to say flying cars and etc. So hopefully this is going to be enough detail for it to know what to create. So now it's actually creating the SVG for the banner. Now I'm going to write add this to, and I'm going to go back here. I'm going to undo the old code and I'm going to paste it in here. Okay, so now it's going to say that we do need to create a new file. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. It's going to be called feature banner or banner section. Yeah, I'm going to feature banner.svg. Now let's copy this, paste this in here. And this is actually going to be React, so JSX. Now in here, hopefully it's going to find it. So there it is. And now here is going to be the image. So that's not even that bad. And now what I'm going to ask it to do is make it smaller and fit in the banner here. So I'm going to write fit this SVG in the banner. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste this in the banner again and see what that's going to look like. So there's going to be our skyscrapers and flying cars. And now we're not going to see the text. So I'm going to say that
the text is gone and see if that's going to fix it.
And it did. And so after around 5 minutes, this is where I got to. So we do have an SVG. I kept telling it to add some details. So make the banner SVG more detailed and so on, but it didn't really do anything. And now what I'm going to do is ask it to add some text in here. So I'm going to write add a simple about section and talk about what AI is capable of. Copy this, go into sections, about section, .jsx, paste all of this in here, add this section to the app. So now we can copy this, paste this here, and this is what it's going to look like. And so after constant battle, I couldn't really do anything, so it just kept coming back to this code. So I'm gonna change my mission here. So what I'm gonna say is I want to have 4 different cubes, or let's say cards, with some information in them. So let's go back in here, and I'm gonna say, actually I'm gonna go back to when we didn't have the about section. So I'm gonna say remake the about section to have 4 different cards with a topic, with each having a topic on AI and explanation under with a generated SVG about the topic. So hopefully this is going to be enough information. I didn't tell anything about the topics or stuff like that, so we'll see. And now let's copy and see what that looks like. So copy and paste. And now we do have 4 topics, and this looks much nicer. So finally we have something that looks a lot nicer, and it is pretty much just circles, but it's better than nothing. And now what I'm going to tell ChatGPT to do is style the title and also add some hover effects. So add hover effects to the card and make the title larger and change the color. Also add another column with 4 new cards. So that's a lot of new information, and I'm really curious how ChatGPT is gonna use this. And now that it's done, I'm just gonna copy this and paste it, and we still have 4 cards, but it changed it to 2 columns. So that's also fine. I'm not gonna change that. Doesn't look that bad. But now when we actually hover, the SVG kind of disappears because the background is purple and we're changing that to purple. So what I'm gonna say is after some time, I told it to change the hover effect to adding pretty much focus to the card that you're on, which is pretty much what it did. And now we actually need to just add some gaps here. So I'm going to say add some space between the cards. And this is going to be for the about. So machine learning, computer vision, natural language processing, and then our robotics here. So now let's copy this, paste this, and now hopefully we're going to be done with our thing. So for some reason, it only added that to the bottom section. And so after fighting ChatGPT for a while, to add the same gap, so over here and here, because if I go back now, we can see that for some reason there's no gap here, but there's gap here. Now if I copy this code and paste it, we're gonna have gaps here. So that's what we wanted, and I want to make a new section for services. So let's go ahead and make that. Now I want to test ChatGPT. So for the next section, I'm just gonna tell it to put whatever ChatGPT wants to add, and I'm also gonna add a section title here. So I'm gonna write about above all of these cards here. So now let's go back to ChatGPT, and I'm gonna ask it to do that. So add a title to the about section, and I'm also gonna tell it to add a hover effect with a hover effect and create a new section on service and add whatever you think is necessary. Now for some reason it didn't create a new section. It removed the spaces here and it added a title. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back, copy this code, which is going to have the spaces here, and I'm going to say add a title and give it a hover effect with animation. Paste it and see what that looks like now. So now we have our about section here with a nice hover effect, and we have this nice animation. And now we need to make a new section. So for the service, I'm going to go ahead and write. So this is going to be randomly generated table, and let's see what we're going to end up with. So let's create another section. This one is going to be service section.jsx. Paste all this in here, and I want to make sure, so services section. So let's just rename this. And now I'm going to tell it to add it to the app.js. I'm going to go ahead and copy that, paste that in here, and hopefully now everything's going to work. So everything works here, our about, and then we have our services. So we can see that it did style it a bit. Now I think I'm gonna ask it to make it a bit larger and then give us some actual text here. And now we can see that it did what I asked it to. So let's go ahead and copy that, paste that in here. Now when we go back, we can see that we have our services here, and we need to make this larger again. And I'm gonna tell it to style this more. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy the new code paste it in here again, go back, and there it is. So now I'm going to tell it to add some animation and effects. So add some animations and effects. So now let's copy this again, paste it in here, and there it is. So now we actually do have some effects. We have our title effect here, and now let's go ahead and create our last feature, which is going to be the contact. Create the last section on contact and add contacts used for Chat-GPT. So now let's go ahead and copy this. So I'm going to go ahead and create it, contact section.jsx, paste all of the code in here, and this whole project is pretty much the same thing all over again, but with different sections and stuff like that. So now we have our contact section, and if we go back here, we can see that we have contact us, we have Facebook, Twitter, and all of the other services. And so now we only need to add a footer. I don't want these to actually work, so I want to see how ChatGPT is also going to do that. So for the footer, I wrote create a footer for this website without much information, so I'm curious what it's going to add here. Components, I'm going to write footer.jsx, paste all of that in here. We're going to copy the app, paste it in here. And now we're going to see what that's going to look like. So we have all of this. So for the footer, I'm going to tell it to redirect this website to ChatGPT. So paste that in here. And now we're going to have explore more about ChatGPT here. So we have the link. Now that we have everything done, I'm going to ask it to work on the navbar. So I want the links to actually work. I'm going to tell it to make the navbar a bit different now. So make the navbar scroll by using section IDs. So the only thing I'm going to do now is just add an ID to each section. I'm not going to ask ChatGPT because it could obviously do that. And I just don't want to spend too much time on this because all that it's going to do is pretty much just add an ID. So now if we take a look here about services, and we can see that it doesn't work because we don't have sections with those IDs. So I'm just going to do this really fast. So at the very top here, I'm going to write ID about, and I'm just going to copy this. So this is the only time that I'm allowed to break this rule. So we got that. Now this is going to be home. This is going to be contact. This is going to be the service. And let's see if that's going to work now. So home, about, services, doesn't work, and contact. So it's services. So there we go. And so this is going to be for this video, so I really hope that you enjoyed it. And if you did, then make sure to leave a like, subscribe, comment down below if you want to see more content like this in the future, and hopefully see you in the next video.